Hey guys, interesting video today. I've decided to do some more non-Jordan stuff. The folks have been clamoring for some pricing updates and some look-ins on some 90s players other than Michael Jordan, other than Kobe, other than Shaq. And so I decided today, let's look at the Twin Towers. Let's look at two guys who I don't know if you guys realize how similar in quality the paper resume of Hakeem Olajuwon and David Robinson are. I think a lot of people look back and think that Olajuwon was significantly better. He wasn't. And we're going to talk through that. Then we're going to look at their indexes in card ladder. Then we're going to look at some cards from insert sets in the 90s and some parallel cards from the 90s that they share in common. We're going to look at the prices and compare Hakeem Olajuwon and David Robinson. I think a lot of these results are going to surprise you guys. So enjoy the video today. There's really not going to be any ultimate conclusion. I just wanted to shed light on two of the greatest centers that have ever played the game of basketball. Certainly two of the top 10 centers of all time that played almost right on top of each other in what was probably the most incredible era in NBA history for big men. You know, I mean, you had Wilt and you had Russell, but you didn't have, Ewing at the same time. You didn't have the tail end of Kareem. You didn't have Shaq at the same time. You know what I'm saying? So that 90s era where giant 7-footers roamed the NBA courts and damn near, you can even talk about Rick Smith and some of the others. Everybody, Duckworth, everybody had a giant 7'1" dude who was either an all-star or a fringe all-star. Brad Daugherty. I mean, you can go down the long list. So that's what today's video is about. I hope you guys enjoy it. We'll look at some fun stuff and maybe we'll learn something together.
See why Card Ladder is the industry leader in sports card data. We know what you want because Card Ladder was created by collectors for collectors. Card Ladder. Join the innovators, not the imitators.
All right, guys, Bryan with Cajun Cardboard coming at you from the great state of Louisiana. The first thing we got to do is if we're going to look at Olajuwon, we're going to look at David Robinson, and we're going to kind of start talking about their basketball card values and prices and sort of who collects who, and are there more Olajuwon collectors? Are there more Robinson collectors? Do you even know anybody out there that collects either? Sure, people are going to pick up a PMG red or a championship or a PMG green if they see it. But honest to God, if you're scrolling through Instagram, if you're scrolling through Facebook, or if you're at a card show, how many true, massive Olajuwon or Robinson, PC guys are there out there? Robinson and Olajuwon super collectors. There's not as many as I feel like there should be. And I know we've always got this age-old, little colloquialism in the hobby that, big men are not collectible. Well, maybe they should be. I don't know. That's what today's video is about. We're going to look at Olajuwon. We're going to look at Robinson as players, as their career unfolded. Then we're going to look at these two guys from a card perspective, and we'll use Card Ladder to help us sort of see if we can come to a conclusion on whose cards are, should be, or why one or the other is worth more than the other. All right, so let's start. I'm always, and every time I want to compare players, I'm going to basketballreference.com. And here's what you can do. You can use a compare player feature. If you pay, you can compare 3 people, but today we're only comparing 2 because we've got Olajuwon and Robinson, and we'll just start at the top. And like I said in the intro, I think what you guys are going to come to understand is, like, at one point, David Robinson was more sought after than Michael Jordan cards. Like, when he rolled out, David Robinson, his rookie year, that 89 Hoops card, if I recall, that was the year, his stuff was on fire, and there weren't any sexy cards back then. It was just your normal base cards, and you might have an all-star sticker or whatever in the years that ensued. It wasn't really until 1992 where all hell broke loose, and we got the beam teams and, the total Ds and team leaders and some crazy stuff like that. And then, of course, 93 scoring kings, and the rest is history. You guys know how that goes with the 90s cards, but Robinson obviously came in a little bit earlier than David Robinson did, pretty significantly earlier than David Robinson did, to be quite honest with you. If we can go find rookie seasons, I got to keep going down here. Yeah, so Olajuwon came in rookie year in 1984. Of course, we remember he was in the same draft as MJ and Sam Bowie. And then Robinson came in 1989. And, of course, Robinson lost a couple years in the NBA to service in the military. I believe it was 2 years. I probably should have researched that before I clicked record, but if I recall, it was 2 years because he, of course, graduated from the Navy in Annapolis and absolutely obliterated college basketball to a level that Olajuwon did not in college. And I know Olajuwon played on Phi Slamma Jam and all that, but Robinson truly, absolutely stood head and shoulders above anyone else in his era in college basketball. So Olajuwon played from age 22 to age 39. Think about it. LeBron was a rookie at age 18 and playing 30 minutes a game. David Robinson didn't play an NBA game until he was 24 years old. So while we measure these two players, just remember Olajuwon had a 2-year head start on David Robinson and played 2 more years at the end than David Robinson. So again, David Robinson missed multiple prime years that would have been glorious because he hit the ground running as an NBA rookie. All right, so let's go up and let's compare these two. Head-to-head, regular season, David Robinson annihilates Hakeem Olajuwon, and it's not even close. When we talk about playoff records, they only matched up for 6 games, believe it or not. I would never have guessed that. I would have guessed significantly more, but it's a 4-2 and 2-4 record against each other. As far as overall games, these are not head-to-head now. We're talking about just games they played. Olajuwon played, over 1,250 more games. We're right at 1,250 more games. That's a lot of games. David Robinson only played 987 games. Points per game, razor thin edge to Olajuwon, 21.8. Remember, these guys played until they were old as hell, and for that reason, what I call the twilight years are going to pull down their averages, right? Because in Olajuwon's later years, people won't remember. The dude played for like the Raptors. He played for a couple different teams. His numbers were nothing. David Robinson was a fossil in his later years too. Tim Duncan was doing all the work. And so because these guys hung on and played for so long, their career averages that we're looking at right now are going to sound really, really low. And so 21.8, 21.1. Of course, at one time, David Robinson led the league in scoring. Olajuwon never did that. But Robinson actually led the league in scoring in that amazing season where it culminated in a razor-thin margin against the great Shaquille O'Neal. So 21.8 to 21.1, not that big a difference. Rebounds 11.1 to 10.6, really nothing there. Assists 2.5, 2.5, even. Steals per game, Olajuwon 1.7, David Robinson 1.4. Pretty normal advantage, Olajuwon. Blocks 3.1 to 3.0. And so when we go back in history and we talk about Hakeem Olajuwon being the all-time block shots leader in the NBA, total block shots, not block shot average per game, he's only 0.1 average per game more than David Robinson was. Who knows if David Robinson might have the advantage had he played when he was age 22, when he was age 23, when he was blocking 4 or 5 shots a game, right? So field goal percentage and all of the efficiency stats, you'll see it's highlighted in green. These are all going to fall in favor of David Robinson, albeit by a narrow margin. 51.8 field goal percentage, 51.2. Three-pointers were thrown out. Neither one of them ever shot them. It wasn't allowed back then. Free throw percentage, pretty decent margin in David Robinson's favor. Neither one were great at it. Effective field goal percentage, slight advantage Robinson. So you're seeing it's an inseparable measurement so far. Box score plus minus, Robinson, VORP, Robinson, not a lot there. Both Hall of Famers, obviously. Both had 2 titles. This is where it gets a little quirky because Hakeem Olajuwon was the fulcrum. He was the alpha. He was the clear-cut, absolute alpha for his titles. For David Robinson, Tim Duncan was there. Just a whole different dynamic, but 2-2, okay, 2-2. First team All-NBA, well, you could only choose one, because they were both centers. They were both in the West. And so back then, Olajuwon was getting an odd 6-4, All-NBA, 12-10. All defensive, 9-8. Let that sink in. These dudes played, however many years, 9 all defensive and 8 all defensive. That's bonkers. Both of them won 1 MVP, so that's shared together. Olajuwon had 2 defensive players of the year. Robinson had 1 defensive player of the year. Olajuwon, and this is where this is the one big separator, is that Olajuwon was the finals MVP. This goes back to the alpha versus the beta argument. Olajuwon had 2 finals MVPs. Robinson had no finals MVPs. Even though they won the same number of championships. I mean, Olajuwon at the time, peak Olajuwon during those 2 missing Jordan years was absolutely insane, ridiculous, preposterous. And so that's what we've got. If we kind of go look at, I'd like to go look at their all-time PER, if I can find that real quick, and then we'll start talking about cards. All-time PER, David Robinson is significantly better. 26.2 to 23.6 is sort of a big deal, man. Defensive rating, Robinson's better. Offensive rating, Robinson's way better. Again, it's not as big a disparity as most people who, if you don't really dig into the numbers and dig into the stats, you would just assume Olajuwon. He won those 2 titles where he was the alpha. Olajuwon was better. He's the all-time shot block, all that stuff, right? It's really not that big a difference between the two. All right, let's look at their cards. I've got Card Ladder, and Card Ladder has a great feature that you can pull up called the indexes. And again, if you want to get a subscription to Card Ladder, I encourage you to do so. I use it immeasurably. I use it often. It is a staple and a foundational piece to the content that I create and the way that I grow my collection and the way that I invest in sports cards. Not just collect, but also invest in sports cards. If you are going to subscribe to Card Ladder, just go to cardladder.com. Please use the promo code Cajun so they know that I sent you. Those folks are good friends of mine. They're doing great things. Of course, they're under the umbrella of collectors now. But if you do get a subscription, I suggest please, or I implore you, please use the promo code Cajun. It's one of the ways that you can support the channel and get something great out of it on the backside. So here we go. David Robinson cards over the last 2 years, down 6.82%. Now here's the tricky thing. Again, whenever you compare indexes, like we'll look at Olajuwon's, right? So Robinson's down 6.82%. Olajuwon's up 12.2%. Here's the problem. You're comparing apples to green apples, right? Olajuwon's index is much more robust, 61 cards. David Robinson's is 22 cards, and the problem with that is most of these cards are going to be his 1989 hoops. He's got 2 versions. He's got the number 138 and the number 310. So if we kind of look through David Robinson's cards here, you're going to find that most of the David Robinson cards that are in Card Ladder are going to be his rookie card. Probably half the cards in here are going to be his rookie card. Maybe a little bit less than half, but still, it's a big portion. So really, as far as unique cards, there's only like 7 or 8 in here. So indexes, when you're comparing stuff like that, it's just really hard. So we're not going to spend too much time on it. It looks like Robinson's down a couple percent, but it might be just his rookie card pulling him down. If we go to cards and then look at kind of which ones are, over the last, let's go to 1 year change, and the ones that are doing the worst, it's going to be his Scoring Kings PSA 9. Okay, so it's not his rookie card. I thought maybe his rookie card would be what's bringing him down because it's a pretty high pop card, but that's not the case. Olajuwon there, you've got much more cards to choose from. Olajuwon, they're going to have all his 86 Fleer, 87 Fleer, 86 Fleer sticker, 87 Fleer sticker, all that stuff. So there's going to be a bigger index for Olajuwon. So comparing indexes is probably not the way to go, right? But let's go ahead and just compare their cards. And so I've sort of plugged in here. No, that's not what I want to show you. Here's what I want to show you. So let's just start with the Beam Team, right? I was trying to figure out affordable, with enough of a pop inserts or parallels from the 90s to compare the 2 players to see which players' cards are worth more and then why. And maybe look at, the pop and maybe look at the card itself and then maybe kind of think about some different things like that. So the first thing I wanted to pull up was there's 152 sales of the 1992 Beam Team with Olajuwon and Robinson combined, okay? So the pop for Olajuwon is 68. The pop for David Robinson is down here at 49. So yes, it's a lower pop, but it's not that much difference if you're comparing their Beam Teams. 13% gem rate for Robinson. It is a 11.6% gem rate for Olajuwon. 700 Olajuwons have been graded. 453 Robinsons have been graded. So what does that tell you right there? It tells you that one player is graded pretty significantly, 33% more often than the other. That usually speaks to the demand, right? It usually speaks to the demand, the total number graded. So if we kind of look at pricing, and I think are these not in Card Ladder? The Olajuwon card is in Card Ladder. Is the David Robinson card in here? Because if it is, then we can just jump to it. Okay, good, it is. Okay, so let's start here. Let's start with the David Robinson Beam Team PSA 10. Here's what that card looks like over the last 2 years. Guess what? There's been 3 sales, okay? So we've got a card that sold for $225, $225, and then it jumped all the way to $440. If we look at all time, You know, of course, this is going to be 2021 or 22. Yep, those cards went up big. People were chasing sets. I think most of the people that collect these PSA 10 Bean Teams are probably set collectors, and what a great set that would be. I actually started that journey and then ended up selling my partial set off to a good friend of mine. But 440 is the last sale for the David Robinson. But what about the last sale for the Olajuwon? Let's see what that is. 440 Olajuwon PSA 10 Bean Team 1992. Last sale 277, and it looks to be heading in a little bit different direction. More of them have sold over the last year, 10 versus 3. But look at these last 3 sales, 249, 252, 249. So advantage Robinson when it comes to the Bean Team. Let's move to the next card. All right, PMG Reds. All right, big cards. Big boy cards here, right? And this is going to be hard because it's going to be hard to find the cards in different grades. 8.5 Robinson sold for $10,000. This is what's weird. This is sorted by date sold, and it's pulling up David Robinson or Olajuwon 97 PMG Reds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 Robinsons have sold since the last Hakeem Olajuwon has sold. The Hakeem Olajuwon that sold was a PSA 6. It sold for $12,600 a little over a year ago. Let's see if we can find a David Robinson BGS 7.5. That's about the same thing as a PSA 6. What is this PSA card right here? That's authentic altered. That's not going to help us. BGS 7.5, $4,900. BGS 8.5 and PSA 6 is about what? It's close. 7, 8 and 6 would be perfect. A BGS 8.5 Robinson in a private sale, allegedly, sold for $10,000 on the nose, whereas the last Olajuwon was a PSA 6 for $12,600. So slight advantage to Hakeem Olajuwon. There's been 22 total graded amongst all grading companies for Olajuwon. There has been 27 total David Robinsons graded. So a slight advantage value-wise for Olajuwon, and that was my experience as well when I was collecting this 97 PMG Red set as well. Slight advantage, slightly more value attributed to the Hakeem Olajuwon, regardless of pop reports and stuff like that. What about the championship? We'll just check out another big boy parallel. The Olajuwon Championship PMG BGS 8.5 most recently sold. This is real recent, so this was last month, 31 days ago from the time I'm recording this, for $11,700. The David Robinson actually sold for more. This was longer ago, right? It was way back in May 2023, so it's 18 months ago, but check it out. It sold for $13,000. Which is a pretty noticeable amount more than the Olajuwon did. Of course, you can find a BGS 9 for $14. The Robinson BGS 8.5 almost matched the Olajuwon BGS 9. And so interesting stuff, interesting results. Of course, if you change it from BGS 8.5 to PSA 9, that Olajuwon goes for $18,480. What if we look at just the highest price ever paid? And that's it. And so if you look at the highest price ever paid for any PMGs, Olajuwon, and then you get to the David Robinson. So this is the highest price ever paid for a David Robinson graded PMG championship, and it was $13,655. Of course, Olajuwon's come down a little bit from his high back in 2023 of $18,480. What else do we have? Let's check out the big men on court. Took out the Z-Pete, so this is just straight up the BMOC. That is in there. I wonder if the Robinson's in there. Is the Robinson in there? No, it's not. Okay, so we can't use the graphs really. But dates sold, and I was shocked at how cheap. Look at the price paid for this card. $142. There's Jordan base upper deck pop 2000 cards that sell for $142. I was absolutely astonished that this was $132 for a new PSA label Big Men on Court, which is one of the best inserts from the 90s. You guys know this card. It's in the, Cajun Cardboard hierarchy for Jordan. A Jordan PSA 8 Big Men on Court would sell for probably over $1,000. I'm sure it would sell for over $1,000. I didn't even really look it up, but I'm sure it would. We'll look it up in a second. But the Olajuwon PSA 8 sold for $270. So Olajuwon 2 times as much as the David Robinson on that one. If we keep scrolling back, I'm just trying to compare them. 175. So maybe that one was just an anomaly. That last 270 Olajuwon seems to be sort of an anomaly. I don't think that's typical. It looks like it's usually about 140, 150, 170. Now we're back into 2022. I don't like to go there. So 170, 180, 190, something like that. This David Robinson that last sold on Fanatics Weekly did not do well. It sold for $132. So pretty similar prices in that one. What else do I have pulled up? Oh, this is where I was just trying to look and just see which cards these two guys had in common. And it was actually really hard. I came to the conclusion that there were significantly more Olajuwon insert cards from the 90s than there were David Robinson, which I thought was odd. Again, another thing that has to do with card prices, it's not just the numbers that we looked at on that breakdown. We looked at Basketball Reference and we compared their accolades and their averages and their percentages and their titles and their MVPs and their Player of the Year awards and the various awards. There's more to collectability than that. We know that, right? We know that because Allen Iverson cards are more sought after than Duncan and oftentimes more valuable. Vince Carter is oftentimes more valuable than Charles Barkley or Karl Malone and things like that. So we know there's more to it. How does the player play? Is the player likable? But this is where it gets really weird because no one on earth, except for Michael Jordan probably, during the early to mid 90s was more marketable than David Robinson. Good looking dude, choir boy, military man, did every single thing right, incredibly articulate, well-spoken, charitable, philanthropist. He checked every box in the world. He kept his nose cleaner than anybody. Olajuwon as well, but Olajuwon didn't speak great English. Olajuwon wasn't on a bazillion commercials. Olajuwon, he came out in an era when the name brand or the player's brand, and again, it's changed a lot since then, but I think David Robinson came out in, even though it was 5 years, what Jordan did to where players had brands, right? So David Robinson came out in a little bit better era as far as how marketable individual players were. So for all of those reasons, you would think David Robinson would be probably the more likable. He's American, right? And the majority of basketball card collectors back then were American. Maybe not now, but back then it was. And so you would think, that David Robinson would dominate Olajuwon from a marketability, perspective, off the court. For sure. But that's kind of where we're at. Like, I didn't really draw any massive conclusions here. I was just throwing this out there and just thought it was interesting. One thing that did totally shock me, I told you we were going to look up, with Robinson and Olajuwon's Hot Shots PSA 8 are worth, 170, 180 bucks. Why don't we just plug in Michael Jordan and just see what comes out? Yeah, I was right. 2,500 bucks. So, what is that? 30x, I don't know, 25x, something like that. I don't know, 20x, 15x, 18x, I don't know, 3240, 2880, 2500, 2400, 2400, 2200, 2300, 2600. That's a lot more than 140, 150, 160, 170. David Robinson, last one sold for 142. Divide 142 into 2,552. It's at least 15, right? That's a pretty big margin, for two of the greatest centers that ever played in the 90s. I don't know. I dream of a day where, I'm sorry I didn't have you on screen share, but just trust me, the Jordan's worth about 2,800. I dream of the day where guys like Olajuwon, Barkley, Malone, Robinson, Peyton, Kemp, Reggie Miller, Grant Hill, Iverson, Duncan, Dirk, those guys are more collected, widespread. Right now it's creme de la creme, man. And again, I know there are amazing collectors out there for all of those guys that I just mentioned. I know you exist, but there's not nearly as many as you would think there would be. Penny Hardaway, you got to throw into that mix as well. But there's not as many out there as you would think there would be. I mean, I can't tell you, a day doesn't go by where I don't think about, maybe I'm just going to put together the best David Robinson collection, of all time. If there was an NBA player that I would ever let babysit my kids, it would be David Robinson, probably. It's just, so many great players from the 90s. There's not that many out there. A lot of these insert in parallel sales that you saw are probably being driven by set collectors. Those may not even be David Robinson, Olajuwon, super collectors. It might just be, those guys aren't PCing those guys. It might just be set collectors trying to complete their set in various grades. And so let me know what you think. Are these cards undervalued? I don't own any of these cards, okay? So I'm not out here to pump and dump. It's not like I'm sitting on a stack of, David Robinson big men on court or big men on court cards. I'm not, okay? I promise you. I don't think I own a single David Robinson or Olajuwon card unless it is part of a set. And I can't think of any except 2012 Prism base. Okay, so I've got about a total of 80 bucks in my David Robinson and Olajuwon portfolio combined. So I promise you this is not a pump and dump. It's just a curiosity. I'm curious of what you guys think. What would you collect? If you were going to collect Robinson or Olajuwon, which one of those two players would you collect? Which one of those two players were better? Which one of those two players' cards are worth more, and I just took a small sample size, and which ones should be worth more? If you were going to collect these players, which of the inserts or parallels would you purchase? Or would you stick with the rookie stuff? You know, Olajuwon had star cards. Olajuwon was part of the great 1986 Fleer set. Huge advantage Olajuwon on both of those accounts. David Robinson did not get the benefit of that. He had two relatively crappy 1989 Hoops rookie cards. I'm sorry, there's no other way to put it. They just were not very valuable. In PSA 10, you know, there is some value out there, but a PSA 9, 1989, I'm just curious, 1989 Robinson Hoops PSA 9. That rookie card is, go ahead and guess. I'm going to put it on the screen. I don't think you're even going to believe what that value is. How much does it cost to grade a card at PSA? Yeah, that's right, 22 bucks. It's a $10 card. David Robinson's PSA 9 rookie card is a freaking $10 card. I've got it on your screen. You can see it for yourself. There's the chart over the last 3 months. It's sold for a high of $21, which is less than it cost to grade at PSA, and someone picked one up for $5.15. So just let that sink in. Now, if you switch over to PSA 10, now you're talking about a little bit more valuable card, but guess what? It's a $56 card. Why? Because there's 2,755. But let me ask you this question. Isn't there also 2,755 Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Luka Doncic or Zion Williamson? No, there's more than that probably for the latter of the two guys. And David Robinson's card's only worth, about 35, 40 bucks, something like that. Luka's are still worth more than that if I'm not mistaken. And what has Luka accomplished compared to David Robinson? You know, maybe Luka ends up being a better player in the long run, but it's not really likely, to be quite honest with you. It's not likely he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. It's not likely he's going to be an MVP. Could he be an MVP? Of course. Could he make more All-NBAs? Probably. Could he make more All-Star teams? Certainly. But if we go look at the Prism Doncic, and this is in an era where you have a lot of Doncic rookie cards to choose from. You did not have a lot of David Robinson rookies to choose from. And by the way, the pop is, what is that, 8 times as much, something like that. And the card is worth 3.5 times as much as David Robinson. And he is 15% of the resume of David Robinson. None of this crap makes any sense to me, right? I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not trying to start an argument or anything, but like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So, and again, one guy's playing now and one guy's not, and one guy is, there are prospectors investing in it and one guy's not. But like I said, there's probably, thousands of different Luka Doncic rookie cards to choose from. There's really only 2 David Robinson cards and really only 1 true rookie card, the 1989 Hoops, unless I'm forgetting something in 1989. I think that's all there was pretty much. So anyway, well, there's a couple other David Robinson rookie cards, of course, but not to the extent of Doncic, where there's hundreds, if not thousands, of unique Luka Doncic rookie cards to choose from. So I don't know. I just thought that was odd, so you can't really blame it on the high pop, because high pop then and high pop now is totally different things. Anyway, that's it. Just throwing it out there. Just food for thought. I just want to get some comments. I just want to know who out there who collects David Robinson, who out there collects Hakeem Olajuwon. Why do you collect them? What do you collect? If you were going to get into it and start collecting them, which cards would you buy? Which one was better? It's just a great argument. And again, I left out Patrick Ewing because he just wasn't as good as these guys. I'm sorry. He just wasn't. He was better than Brad Daugherty and Rick Smith, but he wasn't better than these two guys. He wasn't in the conversation with these two guys. Shaq was, along with Olajuwon and David Robinson and Shaq. I would put those 3 as the big 3 centers from that era. But Ewing is just, sorry, he's on the outside looking in. I'm sorry, he just is. That's it. That's the end of the video, guys. Again, a whole lot of nothing, a whole lot of everything about nothing. No conclusions, no results, no aha, no answer, no shocking revelation. Just want to look at some numbers for 2 great players and give them a little bit of screen time that I think they deserve. Thank you guys for watching. Keep collecting. I'm still getting over a cold. It's actually in the 20s in Louisiana. Thank you guys for watching. Keep collecting. Stay positive in the hobby. And peace.